Thank you for this opportunity to contribute. So I'm going to talk about the Woodland Trust's approach to minimising disease within our planting programme. So yeah, I'm Rebecca and I'm the Conservation Evidence Officer for Tree Health here at the Woodland Trust. So just a very quick overview to the Woodland Trust. So we have over 1,250 sites now, and you can see the location of these in the map on the right. And this covers almost 30,000 hectares across the UK. So this includes more than 4,000 hectares of ancient semi-natural woodland, but also 4,000 hectares of non-native plantation on native woodland site, what we call PAWS. And we've also now created almost 5,000 hectares of new native woodland. So that's our planting. So as well as planting on our own land, on our estate, we also plant through outreach programs. So we have a few different outreach programs. So we have More Woods. This is where I have large scale planting. So this is where over 500 trees and they have to be planted within at least half a hectare. And we fund up to 75% of the costs for More Woods. We also have More Hedges. So again, we subsidise up to 75% for people that are planting more than 100 metres, can't speak today, 100 metres of new hedging. And we also have free trees for communities, and these are for schools and communities around the country for different planting that they might want to do. So throughout our outreach programs, this is approximately 2.5 million trees a year that we put in the ground. So how can bacterial plant diseases threaten these planting? So right tree, right place is quite a common phrase now, and it's one that we aim for. So demarcated zones can actually threaten this if we can't move certain plant materials in and out. So if we had a bacterial plant disease that was found to be kind of on native trees that we plant, that could be a threat for us. But also to get this right tree in right place, we want as many native species available to us as possible. However, we're losing species for native planting, such as ash and elm, which we no longer plant. So it's just threatening that kind of right tree, right place. The more and more we kind of have that restriction of species that we can put in the ground. Because for conservation planting at the Trust, we still believe that for ecology and for biodiversity, that planting native trees is the best thing to do. So some of the standard things we do, which do increase our site resilience, is mixed planting. So when we are planting, we'll only have a maximum of 35% of any one tree species. And then when we're managing a woodland that's a bit older, more developed, if it's feasible and appropriate for the conservation and interest of the site, we will only have up to 50% of one species dominate within the understory and the canopy. And we also encourage natural regeneration where possible within our sites. So these two kind of main pathways that we've identified into our planting schemes, and this is the trees themselves, the introduction of new planting material, and then also the volunteers, the contractors, and the people that are coming onto site. So I'm going to talk mainly about our tree sourcing. So you might have already heard about this, but in 2014, we started our own assurance programme here at the Woodland Trust. It's UK and Ireland sourced and grown, or UKISG for short. And this was started following the cholera ash dieback outbreak. So kind of the key aims of this assurance programme is to safeguard our native trees through top biosecurity measures to prevent importing any new pests and diseases to the UK, to protect future seed suppliers and growers alike by providing them with business and also reducing the risk of new pests and diseases within their sector, and increasing the market by increasing both supply and demand, hopefully for UK sourced and grown trees. So these are growing mainly broadleaf native forest and Scots pine. However, the assurance programme can be applied to non-native species, but for our conservation planting, these are the species that we source. And we currently have 26 nurseries signed up to this. It includes 2 nurseries in Ireland as well. And this is small nurseries, but also including some of the largest in the UK, such as Elba Trees. And what we do is we provide nurseries with contracts up to 3 years in advance. So we're contracting these trees before we need them, giving the nurseries the confidence to invest in their infrastructure to grow the trees in the UK. And from 2014 to 2020, through this scheme, we sourced 12.5 million trees. However, this is increasing annually, and it's expected that this year our total tree sourcing number will be 6.5 million. So it's really important for us to have these trees that are suitable for our local landscape in the right number and healthy, and local seed provenance is upheld where possible. So how we ensure that top biosecurity is happening at these nurseries is that we do audit the nurseries annually, and this is covered by the Woodland Trust, so we don't charge the nurseries to go out and do these audits. We cover all of their costs for the auditing. So we're looking at a few kind of key things when we go and do these audits. Most of all, kind of we're looking for good record keeping and traceability. We recognise that not all nurseries will be completely UK ISG. Some nurseries will have imports and other stock as well. So we're looking to make sure that there's physical separation, if not just a good space between UK ISG and non-UK ISG stock. To make sure that there's kind of a good space, so there's no risk of transmission between imports and between our own stock. We recognise that there's also a risk of transit plants. So when nurseries import and they just literally go through the nursery and back out the other side. So we ask nurseries to thoroughly examine these trees for pests and diseases and keep a record of protocols and inspections as well. Alongside the actual live planting material, we also ask that seeds that are used for UK ISG, because they're sourced in the UK, are kept separately from the imports of seeds that the nursery might also handle. They're kept as far away within the seed beds as well once they're planted, as far away physically. Ideally, one seed bed between UK ISG and non-UK ISG stock. If that's not possible, then we ask for a minimum of 10 metres. So we also look at the soil, so making sure that no soil from outside the nursery, whether that be a UK ISG nursery or imported stock, is added to the nursery's own soil to make sure there's no contamination potentially by diseases. We're also looking at water management, so water testing, ensuring that there's good groundwater management. We're looking at the nursery's records, including seeing if the nursery is in regular contact with other local nurseries and garden centres with a 10-mile radius to check for any unusual pest and disease outbreaks. And then we're also looking for good biosecurity, so making sure there's notices up, that there's fruit washing available and it's obvious where it is. So that's some of the key things that we will look for on our audits, make sure our UK ISG trees are of really good biosecure stock. And then I also said I'd briefly mention our volunteers, staff and contractors. So this is done on a risk-based approach. So if there's any known or suspected pest or disease on site, and if they're considered a low risk or a high risk pest or disease. So low risk standard procedures that we're working into daily habits include visually clean footwear and outerwear, cleaning vehicles regularly, and visually clean equipment too. However, where we've got high risk, so this might be sites with suspected ptophorus, such as Ramorm and Ostracedrae, or sweet chestnut blight. This is where we ask for clean kill use or propeller use on tools, avoiding vehicle access, keeping to the hard tracks, and this is where we're putting in kind of more high biosecurity measures. But for that low risk approach, we want to make it workable and usable for our staff, for our volunteers, for our contractors. The contracts that we give out, depending on, again, low risk or high risk site, will include biosecurity within them, making sure the equipment that's coming onto and off to site is clean. But we are currently revising and developing our biosecurity protocol as well. We always are, with new evidence coming out and new advice as well. So I was asked about things that we could use at the Woodland Trust for the Bacterial Plant Diseases Programme. And I just had a few kind of key thoughts. Apologies, these quite are overarching. So how can we apply findings, especially for the oak research, so for backstop and future oak, to our management? So it's really thinking especially about kind of our management of veteran and ancient oaks that we have on our estate. I'm also interested in what the threat of Xylella is to our native trees. I know it does transmit quite slowly, but I know it can also be a problem for oaks. So it'd be really interesting to see if there's any research on that. and nursery audits as well, is any findings in the bacterial plant diseases programme that we could implement within our nursery audits to make sure that our stock that's being produced for us is as biosecure as possible. And is there any kind of new symptoms that we should be looking for when we're receiving trees as well? So yeah, that's my input. Thank you for having me.